This is Steve Elliott with Grassfire, and I'm joined by Brian Connor for this special report for our VIPs. Brian, this is really exciting to bring this to our VIPs.
It's our inaugural issue, recording, podcast, whatever you want to call it, right out of
Yes,
the gate.
yes, it is. We're going to cover a couple things today. One, did someone just catch Rush Limbaugh's mantle? We're going to talk about Trump's recent interview that he did. We're going to take a look at something Tulsi Gabbard said, and a few more things about Joe Biden's America. But Brian, let's get right to it with um, with the interview with that Tucker did with Rush Limbaugh. I think that's probably the biggest thing we want to talk about. Let's just get right to that and see what we're thinking about that right now. I mean, I don't know if everyone saw that. I mean, I was kind of amazed by that interview, actually.
Yeah, it was a great interview, and you and I have talked about it. How it seemed like Tucker was a little almost surprised
Yeah.
by some of President Trump's responses to different things. I think one of the things that I'm sure you'll allude to is the fact that it strayed so far off of, and I think in a great way, off of his arrest
Right.
and arraignment.
Because that's how it was positioned. It was positioned as the first major interview since President Trump was arrested. And again, that was a sad historic moment. The first time a U.S. president, sitting president or former president had been arrested on criminal charges in
Hmm.
U.S. history. And so
Yeah,
that was how it was positioned. Tucker was getting the first big interview. And yet President Trump spent almost the entire time talking about other issues.
right. Yeah, I mean, the only way you can describe it, I think, accurately is to call it presidential,
Mm-hmm.
because they spoke about a wide range of issues facing the United States, everything from, the decline of the dollar, which is what you see on screen in front of you, to foreign policy. And of course, they touched on the arrest, but, and
Right.
then even a little bit on whether or not Joe Biden will run in 2024. And, President Trump was very candid, and he said, I'm not sure that he can. So if you haven't seen that interview, it's a large portion of it is posted on grassfire.com, and we would recommend you have a look and a listen to it.
Right. And our VIPs are getting those updates in the morning. This week, we covered it very extensively. And Tucker seemed really surprised that the president spent the whole time not just talking about himself and getting arrested, but he spent a lot of time talking about Afghanistan, which people have already forgotten. He called it the most embarrassing moment in American history. He talked about that instead of talking about global warming, he talked about the threat of nuclear warming and that we call it to be nuclear annihilation. That threat is growing every day. He talked
Right.
about and Tucker actually seemed taken aback because the second day Tucker mentioned it again and brought it back to that President Trump talked about substantive issues, and that's really the tone that I think if the president could keep, it would actually make a big difference for him moving forward. So let's talk about something that you noted that Tulsi Gabbard was addressing. It's an issue which has kind of been a little bit confusing, and Grassfire is dealing with it right now.
Right. And it's an issue that's kind of gotten swept under the rug a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. It's been off the radar because of so much Trump news.
Right.
But they're working to ban TikTok. Again, Trump was right. He tried to ban TikTok under his administration, and he got very close. And there was going to be an American company that was going to buy TikTok, but then that fell apart with all of the election mess that went on. But now that Republicans are in control of the House, and they've been working with some Democrats to ban TikTok. But the idea that they've come up with is this Restrict Act, which is
Mm-hmm.
being called Orwellian. It's being called, the Patriot Act on steroids. And even Tulsi Gabbard, she issued a statement this week that was really strongly against it because it's a threat to First Amendment free speech rights for Americans. And
Right.
and again, in the email that we just sent out, we quoted Tucker, and he said it's never about what they say it is. So they act
Mm-hmm.
like it's about, keeping Americans' information private, keeping it out of the hands of the Chinese Communist Party, but they're going to kind of do an end around at the same time and restrict our rights. So, the initiative that we've launched is
Mm-hmm.
for, Congress to ban TikTok, but to reject the Restrict Act. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you want to protect Americans' personal information, you don't have to trample on their constitutional rights to do it.
Yeah, and this is what the left does: is they take an issue which people become concerned about, and then they say, "Oh, we're going to solve that issue," and they solve it by greatly expanding the tentacles of the government instead of actually solving the problem. In my opinion, to solve the problem with TikTok would be to force the Chinese owners to sell it. That would be the best way to solve that problem. We don't want to create another bureaucracy, another layer of legal attacks against conservatives. That's what they will use this as. They will use this to attack conservative speech. Let's be very clear about that. And there's another section that we're covering in the VIP briefing every time we publish these is Joe Biden's crime family. It's another thing that there's a lot of news on it, but not a lot of discussion.
I was kind of surprised when I was pulling those clips together and to see them, prominently featured. I think a lot of them were on Fox News, yet I didn't really see any coverage anywhere else because, Hunter went on, he flew aboard Air Force One with his dad to go to Ireland, and there's been a lot of criticism surrounding that because of what's going on, what people are saying, and the new evil axis is forming between Russia, China, and Iran, and whoever's going to jump on board with them, and everything's going on in Ukraine, and then he runs off for a feel-good trip in Ireland with his son, but at the same time, all these different bombshells, and that's not my word, that's the word in the press coverage, all these bombshells are falling out from, Hunter's and Joe's and Jim Biden's, business dealings. And it's as we as Americans watch President Trump be vilified for different things, the other side is doing much worse. But the people in charge don't seem to care because it's their side who's doing it.
And this is unfortunately the double standard that we have right now. Everything is a double standard. You get right back to Russia collusion. Well, we know who was colluding. It was actually Biden who was colluding in Ukraine and with China. Trump having document issues. No, Biden's one really had the document issues. And
they're worse.
Yeah, much worse. Yeah. So this is the battle we face. And it's one of the reasons why we're doing these reports, doing these updates, so that our team members, no matter what the left is trying to distract us with, we can keep people focused on what's actually happening. Brian, there was a little bit of good news that you've been reporting on. Talk about this, what we're seeing now since the Supreme Court decision.
Yeah, that was shockingly good news when I came across that article on Breitbart News, which was just that, in the past 6 months after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, the historic landmark pro-abortion ruling, and gave power back to the states. I don't know how, but according to one report, they counted and there's 32,000 fewer abortions. We're on a lower pace for abortions since the Supreme Court made the decision to protect preborn and newly born babies. And it's harder to get, find better news than that.
And actually,
pro-life.
Technically, the Supreme Court did not make a decision to protect babies. The Supreme Court made a decision to overturn a bad decision. And it's really important because that's really what conservatives have said all along, is we don't want the court to legislate from the bench. That's what the left does. The left wants the court to legislate from the bench, to change our culture, to change our laws. What the court should do is to rule between parties and set precedent that can then be followed by the lower courts. And the Roe v. Wade precedent was a very poorly argued and decided case. So that's pretty much agreed upon. It was done to create a legislation effective abortion. So the Supreme Court overturned that. The good news is that grassroots Americans, through their state legislatures, can now change the abortion laws in their states, and the result is we're seeing fewer abortions. This is great news. This is truly federalism. It's what we want to have happen, Brian. So another thing you had on there that you showed us that was kind of, you featured another. If I can get to it, you featured this also, was this interesting story, and we sometimes just want to put good news on there too.
I'm telling you, that was the feel-good story of the week.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was out. You can see in the bottom corner of the image there, the screen capture, 3 million views. That was after like 2 days. It was, if you haven't seen it yet, go click on that link, because it's an excerpt from the TV show Judge Judy, and there's no audio, but there's captioning, and apparently that man that we see here is separated from his dogs. Someone else has possession of the dog, and they bring it into the courtroom. And the moment you see the dog have the realization that my real owner is here,
Yeah.
Judge Judy says, put the dog down, and the dog runs immediately to its rightful owner. And it's so heartwarming.
And she kind of says, case over, right? Kind of like.
Yeah, she said, case, basically, it's his dog. And she gets up and leaves the bench. And, I have to admit, it got a little misty in here when I saw that, being a dog lover and a dog owner. So it was nice to break from, so much of the, I don't want to call it bad news, but let's just call it at this point intense news inside of the regular cycle of headlines and coverage, and to see something like that.
Well, for the record, Brian, I'm also a dog lover. I just love other people's dogs. I just don't have any of my dogs. I do love dogs. Anyways, we promised one more thing before we close, that Rush Limbaugh's mantle may have been caught by someone. And if you're not familiar with the story, I'm sure you heard the idea of a mantle. It comes from the Old Testament, the story of Elijah and Elisha. And Elijah was the prophet who struggled with his own sense of destiny and purpose until he had an encounter on a mountain. You can go read about it. And he the Bible says he wrapped his face in this mantle. It was the outer cloak of a prophet. And he held on tight to that mantle. And everywhere he went, he took that mantle with him. And there were healings and miracles. And Elisha began to become mentored by him and followed him around. And then a day came when Elijah was caught up in the chariot and was taken up. And the only thing that dropped was his mantle drops out of the sky. And Elisha catches the mantle and then proceeds to the Jordan River and says, where is the Lord God of Elijah? Puts the mantle down, and the water splits, and confirms that he has that same anointing and does twice as many miracles as Elijah did. And so now we take that, and so we talk about a mantle. And in a way, Rush Limbaugh, Brian, we've talked about this for grassroots Americans, for patriotic citizens. He would help us interpret and understand the events of the day. Something would happen, and we'd almost wait till noon, till 12:05, and that music would start, and Rush would come on and tell us it's all going to be okay. And here's let me help you understand what's happening. I mean, you remember many years of that.
Yeah. I think we were spoiled by that, because he was the voice of conservatism and many times a voice of reason for our nation.
And he would kind of help us to interpret the events of the day. And so then, he passed away. And so what happens? Where do we? Well, I don't think the mantle dropped on one person, but I would argue that, and we've talked about this, that Tucker Carlson is one of the voices now who's interpreting the culture and the politics for us in a very, very special way. Brian, don't you think so? You agree?
Yeah, and we spoke about this, that I think that just like people, and you mentioned it a few seconds ago, people used to wait, and what does Rush have to say about this? Every day at noon to 3. And now I think people's eyes have turned to Tucker, and they wonder, what is Tucker going to have to say about this tonight? It's 5 hours, well, now 8 hours later, really.
Yeah.
It's 8 p.m. instead of 12 noon. But I think that, he's now the voice that people are listening to more than any other.
And, the interesting thing about it's different. He's not doing live radio for 3 hours.
Right.
He's doing live TV, but Tucker's a writer. I mean, he started as a writer, and he sometimes has 12, 15-minute monologues. And you're a writer as well, Brian. That's actually a very difficult to construct a monologue 10 minutes long that involves video, so forth. But he takes time to think about it, process it with his staff, I'm sure. And so he's doing a little bit different approach in the evening to more digest it and then to give a perspective on the news. But he's not alone, Brian. I mean, there's others that are participating in this, and it's part of what we're doing here at Grassfire and why we need the help of our VIPs. So if you're a VIP, thank you so much. If you're watching this on special invitation, we need your help. We need about 100 new VIPs this month. We've been in a battle. We've just faced our 4th shutdown by hostile ISPs who are blocking Grassfire emails. We've had over 100,000 Grassfire team members who have not been able to receive our emails for over 4 months. And it's becoming very, very difficult to get the message out. But Grassfire is a unique voice in this debate in the culture. We stand independent of any political party, of any large or even nonprofit or big funders. We're here for grassroots Americans, and we need you to become a VIP. You'll get the VIP News Digest. I think it's the best aggregation of the news that you'll find out there at all. You can get 80% off our fax fires, which it's just doing that once a month will more than compensate for the cost, $15 a month of being a VIP. You can send unlimited faxes to your members of Congress. We just launched a new impact portal. We just got a lot of things that we're doing, Brian, that I think it's really time that we need the help of grassroots Americans right now in a big way.
Yeah, well, we can really feel the forces of the opposition, coming up against us, whether it's, big tech or the deep state, or, I mean, when you can't send, hundreds of thousands of emails to subscribers, because that's what different people have asked or have,
right.
Said, because we've gotten some coverage about this, and people, criticized our stance because, oh, well, that's what happens when you spam people. None of this is spam. These are all people. These are all, America First patriots. They're conservative Americans who have signed up to receive our updates, and we're being silenced. We're being censored because of, the message that we're trying to share with like-minded Americans. Our job at Grassfire is to give people a voice. And how can they have a voice, a strong voice, if they don't have the knowledge of what's going on? If you can't find out what's happening, you're going to be a low information American, a low information voter, and maybe you'll choose not to get involved. And I'm personally, I'm tired of seeing us get steamrolled by whether it's big tech or fake news or anyone. And if someone wants to try and tell me or make an argument that it's not happening, I can make a very strong argument that it is. That's why we need the help of people, like you. If you're watching this and you are a VIP member, thank you for standing with us. If you're not, like Steve said, if you're getting it on special invitation, please consider for $15 a month or more. And, the more you take advantage of your VIP membership, the more impact you're going to have.
Well, Brian, I couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much for being here with me to have this discussion with our team members, VIPs. Thank you so much. If you're not a VIP, as Brian said, please, we need your help right now more than ever. Sign up to become a VIP. Just go to grassfire.com/VIP or click on the VIP tab. And we will include you in our morning briefings, these special videos. You get the 80% discount and much more. Thanks again, Brian. And thank you to the entire Grassfire team. Have a great day.
Have a great weekend.